I thought it was a meteor. That's what I told myself when I first saw the light tearing through the October sky, so bright it turned the darkness into something else entirely. But I was wrong. What fell into my cornfield that night wasn't rock or ice or space debris. It was something that knew my name, something that had been waiting for me. And what it told me about the return of Christ, about the exact moment when everything we know will end and begin again, will change everything you believe about prophecy, about time itself, and about why we're really here. I need you to do something for me before we go any further. I need you to comment below and tell me where you're watching this from. What city, what country, what corner of this spinning world. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't just my story. It's a message that was meant to reach beyond one man standing in a field, in the middle of nowhere. And if you've ever seen something you couldn't explain, if you've ever felt like there was more to this reality than what they teach us, then subscribe to this channel and share your story in the comments. Because after tonight, you're going to understand that none of us have been alone in our questions. Not ever. My name is Thomas Waverly, and I'm 57 years old. I've worked the same 300 acres of Iowa farmland, my entire adult life land, that my grandfather cleared with his own hands. Land that my father died trying to keep. I grow corn and soybeans, and I live in a house that's too big for one person, filled with photographs of a family that used to exist. My wife Sarah died 6 years ago. Breast cancer. My daughter Emma stopped calling about 2 years after that, and I don't blame her. Grief makes people into strangers, even to themselves, especially to themselves. I tell you this because you need to understand who I was before that night. I was a man going through motions. I still went to church on Sundays at Bethel Community, sat in the same pew I'd sat in for 30 years, but I wasn't really there. The words of the hymns felt hollow. The sermons about God's plan felt like cruel jokes. When Pastor Mike talked about faith, I nodded. But inside I was asking the question I'd asked 1,000 times. What kind of God takes a woman like Sarah and leaves behind a man like me? I'd stopped praying. Not dramatically, not with anger. I just stopped. Like turning off a faucet. The silence felt more honest. It was October 17th, 2024. Thursday night, just past midnight. The temperature had dropped into the low 40s, and there was that particular quality to the air that comes before the first frost, crisp, almost metallic, like you could taste the stars. I couldn't sleep, which wasn't unusual. Insomnia had become my companion, so I'd pulled on my work jacket and boots and walked out to the back porch with a cup of coffee that had gone lukewarm in my hands. The sky was impossibly clear. No moon, just an ocean of stars scattered across the black. Living this far from any city, you forget what light pollution steals from people. Out here, the Milky Way isn't some faint smudge. It's a river of light, ancient and indifferent, flowing across the void. I was standing there, not thinking about anything in particular, just existing in that numb space I'd learned to inhabit, when I saw it. A streak of light, brilliant white with a tail of blue-green fire, cutting across the northern sky like a knife through silk. My first thought was meteor. We get them sometimes during the Orionids, though this was the wrong time of year. But this was different, brighter, and the trajectory was wrong. It wasn't arcing across the sky and disappearing beyond the horizon. It was coming down, straight down, toward my property. I watched it descend. My coffee cup frozen halfway to my lips, my breath caught somewhere in my chest. The light grew brighter. So bright I had to squint, and I could hear it now, a sound like distant thunder, mixed with something else, something that made the air itself vibrate, that I felt in my sternum and teeth. It was coming down fast, impossibly fast, and then it disappeared below the tree line at the western edge of my property, somewhere out in the far cornfield. I waited for the impact, for the explosion or the crash or whatever sound a meteor makes when it hits the earth. But there was nothing, just silence. And then, very faintly, a glow rising from beyond the trees, not orange like fire, but white-blue, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat made of light. I should have called someone. The sheriff, maybe, or the fire department. That would have been the reasonable thing to do, but I didn't. I set down my coffee cup, walked back inside, grabbed my flashlight, and headed out across the fields toward that light. The corn had been harvested 2 weeks earlier, so the field was just rows of broken stalks and dark earth crunching under my boots. My flashlight beam looked weak and yellow against the darkness. The air smelled like dirt and decay and something else, something sharp and clean, like ozone after lightning. That smell grew stronger as I walked, until it overpowered everything else. It took me 15 minutes to reach the western field. The glow was coming from a spot about 200 yards in, near the old equipment shed we don't use anymore. As I got closer, my flashlight started to flicker. Then it died completely. I smacked it against my palm a few times, but it was gone. Didn't matter. There was enough light ahead to see by. I climbed over the fence and started walking through the broken stalks, and that's when I saw it clearly for the first time. It wasn't a crater. There was no impact damage at all, no torn earth or scattered debris. Instead, there was an object roughly spherical, maybe 12 feet in diameter, resting on top of the ground, as if it had simply materialized there. Its surface was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Not metal exactly, but not organic either. It looked almost liquid, like mercury, but solid, reflecting the starlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Colors moved across its surface. Silver, blue, deep violet, rippling and flowing in ways that didn't follow any physics I understood. And it was warm. I could feel the heat radiating from it even from 20 feet away. Not burning, but comfortable, like standing near a campfire on a cold night. I stood there, just staring, my mind trying and failing to categorize what I was seeing. A satellite? Some kind of military drone? But nothing human-made looked like this. Nothing human-made felt like this. That's when it opened. No hatch, no seam appearing. The surface simply flowed apart like water, creating an opening about 6 feet tall. And light poured out, not the blue-white glow from before, but warm golden light, soft and inviting. The kind of light that makes you think of home even though you've never seen it before. I should have run. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to turn around and get as far away as possible. But I didn't run. I couldn't, because standing in that opening, silhouetted against the golden light, was a figure. It stepped forward, and I got my first clear look at it. It was humanoid, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, roughly my height. But that's where the similarities ended. Its skin, if you could call it that, had a faint luminescence, like pearl or abalone shell, shifting between silver and soft gold. Its features were both familiar and alien eyes, larger than human eyes, without visible pupils, just deep pools of amber light. No hair. Its proportions were slightly off in ways I couldn't quite pinpoint, like looking at a drawing of a human made by someone who had only heard humans described. It wore no clothing, but there was nothing vulnerable about its nakedness. It simply was. Like a statue or an angel in an old painting. We stood there, 20 feet apart, looking at each other across an Iowa cornfield in the middle of the night. And then it spoke. Not with its mouth. The mouth didn't move at all, but I heard the words clearly, resonating inside my skull, behind my eyes, in a voice that was neither male nor female, but somehow both. Thomas Waverly. Be not afraid. My legs went weak. I actually staggered backward a step, my boot catching on a broken stalk. Those words, be not afraid, they're what angels say in the Bible, every single time they appear to humans. I knew that. Sunday school might have been 40 years ago, but some things stick with you. What are you? I managed to say, and my voice sounded small and cracked. I am Raziel, it said, and the name seemed to echo with harmonics I couldn't quite hear. I am a messenger, a keeper of mysteries, a servant of the one who made the stars and named them each. An angel? I whispered. That is one of your words for what I am, yes. Though the reality is both simpler and more complex than your traditions describe. I am not of earth, Thomas, but I am of God. And I have come because you have questions, because you have stopped asking them aloud, but they scream inside you nonetheless. My throat felt tight. How do you know my name? How do you know anything about me? Raziel moved closer, and I realized its feet didn't quite touch the ground. It hovered, just barely, leaving no footprints in the soil. When it was perhaps 10 feet away, it stopped. I know your name because it is written, Raziel said. I know your pain because pain echoes across dimensions you cannot perceive. I know that you ask why Sarah was taken. I know that you wonder if there is purpose in suffering. I know that you have lost your faith, not in God, but in the story you were told about who God is. Tears were running down my face now, and I didn't remember starting to cry. If you're from God, why? Why did she have to die? Why did she have to suffer like that? Because this world is broken, Raziel said, and there was something like sorrow in that voiceless voice. Because when your ancestors chose knowledge over trust, they wove suffering into the fabric of reality itself. Death became inevitable. Pain became currency. But these things were never part of the original design. Thomas, they are corruptions, not features. Viruses in the code of creation. Then why doesn't God fix it? The question burst out of me, raw and angry. If he's so powerful, why doesn't he just reset everything? Make it right again? He did, Raziel said quietly. He does. He will. But not in the way you expect. Not with a snap of cosmic fingers, because that would require overriding the very gift he gave you: choice, free will, the ability to love or reject love, to create or destroy, to heal or harm. If he forced righteousness upon you, you would cease to be you. You would be puppets, and puppets cannot love. The repair requires participation. It requires sacrifice. It required the incarnation. I knew that word, Jesus. God becoming human, dying, rising. I'd heard it 10,000 times. But hearing it from this being here in my field, it sounded different. Less like theology and more like physics. Then why are you here? I asked. What do you want from me? Raziel was silent for a long moment, and I watched those amber eyes study me with what might have been compassion. I am here to tell you what I know, it finally said. I am here to answer the question that humans have asked for 2,000 years. I am here to tell you when he returns. The air seemed to stop moving. Even my heartbeat felt suspended. When who returns? But I already knew. Jesus, Yeshua, the Christ, the Lamb, the King. The one who walked among you and will walk among you again. I know the day and the hour, Thomas Waverley, and I have been given permission to tell you. My mind went blank. Just static. Because this was impossible. Jesus himself had said nobody knows the day or the hour, not the angels in heaven, not the Son, only the Father. It was in Matthew chapter 24, verse 36. I might not have prayed in years, but I remembered that verse. That's not possible, I said. Jesus said no one knows, not even the angels. He said no one knew, Raziel corrected gently. Past tense. He spoke those words 2,000 years ago, in a specific context, to a specific people. But time is not static, Thomas. Prophecy unfolds. Mysteries are revealed in their appointed seasons. What was hidden can become known. And now, in this hour, in this age of signs and wonders, some of us have been told. Not all. But some, those of us tasked with preparing the way for his return, I felt dizzy. Why me? Why would you tell me? Because you will listen, Raziel said. Because you are broken enough to hear truth without filtering it through comfort or doctrine. Because you have nothing left to lose except the burden of your doubt. And because what I tell you must be spoken into the world, and you will speak it. I'm nobody, I protested. I'm a failed farmer who lives alone. Who's going to listen to me? Everyone who is meant to hear will hear, Raziel said. Truth finds its own channels. Now, listen carefully, Thomas. I will tell you this only once, and then I must return to my post. Will you hear me? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Raziel rose slightly higher, and the golden light from the craft behind it intensified, casting long shadows across the broken field. When it spoke again, the words seemed to come from everywhere at once. The return of Christ will occur on the third day of the Jewish month of Tishrei, in the year you call 2033. By your Gregorian calendar, this falls on September 25th. The hour will be the 6th hour after dawn, Jerusalem time, what you would call noon. The location will be the Mount of Olives, the same place from which he ascended. He will appear in the clouds, as witnessed by every eye, as recorded by every device, undeniable and inescapable. The sky will split with the sound of the last trumpet, and the dead in Christ will rise first, followed by the transformation of those who remain. This is not metaphor, Thomas. This is scheduled reality. I was shaking, actually trembling like a leaf in wind. 2033. That's only 8 years away. 8 years, 11 months and 8 days from this night, Raziel confirmed. A handful of breaths in cosmic time, an eternity in human time. Enough for preparation, enough for choice, enough for some to come home and others to run further into darkness. How do you know? I demanded. How can you possibly know with that kind of precision? Because time is not what you think it is, Raziel said, and now its voice held something like patience, like a teacher with a struggling student. You experience time as a river, flowing in one direction, carrying you from birth to death. But from outside your dimension, time is simply space, a landscape. We can see it as you see a map. All of it at once, past and future, cause and effect, woven together in patterns of probability and destiny. The return of Christ is not a random event, Thomas. It is an appointment, a coordinate, a convergence point toward which all of history has been flowing since the day he left. But why that day specifically? Why September 25th, 2033? Raziel tilted its head, a gesture that was almost human. Because it completes a pattern. The ministry of Christ lasted 3.5 years, 42 months, as your book of Revelation describes. The time from his ascension to his return is 2,000 years, but measured in prophetic years of 360 days each. The mathematics align perfectly with the feast days and the cycles of Jubilee that were built into the foundation of your covenant with God. Tishrei is the 7th month, the month of trumpets, the month of atonement, the month of tabernacles. The 3rd day of Tishrei is the day between judgment and mercy. It is when the books are not yet sealed, when repentance is still possible, when God dwells with his people in temporary shelters before the final dwelling is established. The symbolism is perfect because God speaks in symbols. Thomas, every feast was a rehearsal. Every ritual was a prophecy. And on that day the rehearsal ends and reality begins. I tried to process this. My brain felt like it was grinding gears that didn't quite fit. So what happens? After he returns, I mean. What happens to us? What has always been promised, Raziel said. Judgment. Not the capricious judgment of human courts, but true judgment. The weighing of hearts against truth. Those who have accepted his sacrifice, who have aligned themselves with love and light, will be transformed, resurrected into bodies that do not decay, that do not suffer. The earth itself will be purged and renewed. The broken code will be debugged, Thomas. The virus will be purged. And creation will be rebooted into what it was always meant to be, a place where God walks with humans as he did in the beginning, before the fall, before the separation. Paradise not as escape, but as restoration. And the others? I asked quietly. Raziel's luminous eyes dimmed slightly. The others will receive what they have chosen. Separation from the source of all light and life and love, not because God is cruel, but because they have insisted upon it. Hell is not a torture chamber, Thomas. It is the logical conclusion of rejecting the only thing that can sustain consciousness in joy. It is getting exactly what you demanded existence without God, and discovering too late that such existence is agony. But even in this there is justice, because every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Christ is Lord, not through coercion, but through the weight of revealed truth. And some, I cannot tell you how many will bow in that moment and find mercy even then. For his mercy is wider than your traditions teach, not universalism but possibilities that your small boxes cannot contain. I wiped at my face with the back of my hand. Why are you telling me this? What am I supposed to do with it? Prepare, Raziel said simply, and testify. Tell others what you have heard, not to convert them through fear, but to offer them hope, to give them a timeline, to let them know that the waiting is almost over, that the groaning of creation is reaching its crescendo, that the birth pangs are intensifying because birth is near. Some will mock you. Some will call you deluded, or worse. But some will hear and recognize the ring of truth, and they will prepare their hearts. That is all that is required of you, Thomas. I don't know if I can, I whispered. I don't know if I even believe what I'm hearing. You don't have to believe it now, Raziel said, and something in its tone felt like a smile. Belief will come. But you will remember every word I have spoken, in perfect detail, for the rest of your days. That is my gift to you. Perfect recall of this conversation, so that when you speak it, you will speak it truly. The memory will not fade or distort. It will remain crystalline, like a recording embedded in your consciousness. And what about my questions? I found myself saying. What about Sarah? About why she had to die? Do I just accept that as brokenness and move on? Raziel moved closer still, until it was perhaps 5 feet away, and I could feel warmth radiating from its form like sunlight on skin. Sarah is not gone, Thomas. She is more alive now than she was in that deteriorating flesh. She waits for you in the place of in-between, where the righteous dead dwell in the presence of God, conscious and whole and free from pain. You will see her again. On that day in September 2033, when the trumpet sounds and the dead rise, she will rise with them. Her body will be renewed, perfected, and you will know her instantly. She will know you, and you will have forever to say all the things you never got to say. This is not speculation, Thomas. This is truth. Hold on to it. I was sobbing now. Really sobbing, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep in your guts. I miss her so much. I know, Raziel said, and for the first time its voice seemed to carry emotion deep, infinite compassion. The Creator knows. He collects every tear in a bottle. He records every moment of grief, and he will wipe them all away, Thomas. Every single one. This is his promise. And he does not break promises. We stood there in the field, being and human, the impossible and the broken, while the stars wheeled overhead and the night held its breath. Finally, Raziel spoke again. I must go. My time here is measured, and I have other appointments before the dawn. But before I leave, I will give you one more thing, a sign, so that you know this was not delusion or dream." It reached out one long-fingered hand toward me. "May I touch you?" I nodded, not sure what else to do. Raziel's fingertips brushed my forehead, just above my right eyebrow, and the sensation was unlike anything I'd ever felt, cold and hot simultaneously, like electricity and ice water and sunlight all at once. The touch lasted only a second, but when Raziel withdrew its hand, I felt different, lighter, clearer, like some weight I'd been carrying without knowing it had suddenly been removed. "What did you do?" I asked. "I removed a burden you were never meant to carry," Raziel said. "The guilt you have held for surviving Sarah, for not saving her, for not being enough. That guilt was a lie, Thomas. You did everything you could. You loved her well, and love is never wasted. The guilt is gone now. You will remember it existed, but you will not feel it anymore. This is my gift to you, so that you can speak what you have heard without the weight of condemnation making you silent." I touched my forehead where Raziel had touched it, and I realized it was true. The knot of guilt that had lived in my chest for 6 years, the voice that told me I should have done more, should have been better, should have saved her, it was silent. Not because I'd reasoned it away or processed it, but because it was simply gone, lifted away like fog burning off in morning sun. "Thank you," I whispered. Raziel inclined its head in what might have been a bow. Then it turned back toward the sphere, which had been pulsing gently this entire time with that golden light. "Remember, Thomas, September 25th, 2033, the 6th hour, Jerusalem time. Tell those who will listen, and prepare your own heart, because the time of waiting is short, and the time of fulfillment is near. The King is coming home, and when he comes, everything will change." Raziel moved back toward the opening in the sphere, that flowing doorway that shouldn't exist. It paused at the threshold and looked back at me one last time. "And Thomas, tell them that they are loved. Tell them that even now, even in the darkness, they are held. Tell them that the Creator has not forgotten them, has not abandoned them, and that every moment of suffering has been seen and will be redeemed. This is the message I carry across the stars, to every world that waits. You are loved. You have always been loved, and love is coming for you." Then Raziel stepped into the golden light, and the opening sealed behind it, the surface flowing back together like mercury, seamless and perfect. The pulsing light intensified, growing brighter and brighter until I had to shield my eyes, and I heard that sound again, the thunder that wasn't, the vibration in the air and earth and bones. When I lowered my hand, the sphere was rising, lifting straight up into the night sky without any visible means of propulsion, silent except for that bone-deep hum. It rose faster and faster, shrinking to a point of brilliant light, and then it was gone, shooting up through the atmosphere and beyond, leaving nothing but the stars and the cold October air and me standing alone in a broken cornfield, forever changed. I stood there for a long time. I don't know how long. Eventually, I became aware that I was freezing, that my face was wet with tears and my legs were shaking. I started walking back toward the house, moving mechanically through the dark field, my mind both utterly empty and completely full. When I got back to the porch, my coffee cup was still sitting where I'd left it, the coffee long cold. I picked it up and carried it inside, set it in the sink, and then I just stood in my kitchen under the fluorescent light, staring at nothing. It was 2047 a.m. I'd been gone less than an hour and a half, but it felt like years. Like I'd left one life and come back to another. I should have doubted it, should have convinced myself it was a dream or a hallucination or a mental break. But I couldn't, because every word Raziel had spoken was still there in my mind, perfect and clear, like watching a recording. I could replay the entire conversation word for word, could see every detail of the being and the sphere and the light. And the weight in my chest, the guilt I'd carried since Sarah died, it was still gone. I kept waiting for it to come back, but it didn't. And there was something else. I walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, and there on my forehead, just above my right eyebrow, was a mark. Small, maybe the size of a dime, silver white against my skin. It looked almost like a scar, but it wasn't raised or textured. It was just there. A mark where Raziel had touched me. Physical proof that I wasn't crazy. I touched it, and it was warm. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table as the darkness outside slowly gave way to gray dawn, and I thought about what I'd been told. September 25th, 2033. 8 years, 11 months, 8 days. The return of Christ. The end of the world as we know it. The beginning of everything else. And I thought about what Raziel had asked me to do, to prepare, to testify, to tell others. The sun came up over the eastern fields, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, and I made a decision. I would speak. I didn't know how or to whom or whether anyone would listen, but I would speak, because what I'd experienced was too real to keep silent. Because somewhere out there, people were asking the same questions I'd asked. People were grieving and doubting and wondering if God was real, if there was meaning, if suffering had purpose. And now I had an answer. Not all the answers, not by a long shot, but one answer. A date, a promise, a timeline. The King is coming back, soon. I started that morning. I drove into town and talked to Pastor Mike, told him everything, showed him the mark on my forehead. He listened, really listened, and when I was done, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Thomas, I don't know what to make of what you've told me, but I know you, and I know something happened to you, something real. So I'm not going to tell you you're crazy. I'm going to pray about it, and I'm going to watch, because if you're right, we don't have much time to waste." I talked to my daughter Emma that afternoon. We hadn't spoken in almost a year, but I called her, and miracle of miracles, she answered. I told her I loved her. I told her I was sorry for disappearing into my grief after her mother died, and I told her about the visitor in the field. She was skeptical, of course she was, but she didn't hang up. She listened, and at the end of the call she said, "Dad, I don't know about aliens and angels and prophecy, but I'm glad you called. And if you want to talk more, call me again, okay?" It was a start. Over the following weeks and months, I talked to anyone who would listen. Some people thought I was delusional, some were hostile, but some more than I expected listened with something like hunger in their eyes. People who had their own experiences they'd never spoken about. People who had seen things in the sky or felt presences they couldn't explain. People who had been waiting for confirmation that they weren't alone in sensing that something was coming, something big, something that would change everything. And I kept that date in my mind, counting down. September 25th, 2033. The 6th hour. Jerusalem time. The return of the King. The first don't know what will happen between now and then. I don't know how the world will change, or what signs will appear, or whether the chaos will intensify or quiet before the storm breaks. But I know this. I'm not afraid anymore. The fear that used to live in my bones, the fear of meaninglessness and abandonment and death, it's gone. Because I've seen beyond the veil. I've spoken with a messenger who came from the throne room of God, and I've been told that this groaning, broken, beautiful world is not forever. That repair is coming, that the King remembers his people, and he's coming home. I still farm my land. I still go to church on Sundays. I still miss Sarah with an ache that sometimes takes my breath away. But now there's something else too. Hope, real hope. Not the vague wish that things might work out, but the solid certainty that they will. That on a specific day, in a specific hour, at a specific place, The sky will open, and everything will change. And I'll be ready. I'm telling you this now, whoever you are, wherever you are, because you need to hear it. Because Raziel's message wasn't just for me. It was for everyone who's listening. You are loved. You have always been loved. Even when you felt alone, even when the darkness seemed absolute, you were held in hands you couldn't see. And the one who made you, who died for you, who rose for you, he's coming back for you. Soon. Not someday. Not in some vague future that might as well be never. Soon. Within the lifetime of many who are watching this right now. You might see it. I will see it if I live that long. And on that day, every question will be answered. Every tear will be wiped away. Every broken thing will be made whole. That's the message. That's what I was told to tell you. And now you know. There are moments, late at night, when I walk out to that western field where the sphere landed, where I met Raziel, where my life was broken open and remade. The earth there looks no different than any other part of my property. The corn grows the same. The soil holds the same. But I can feel it, a warmth, a presence, an echo of that golden light. And I remember. I remember amber eyes and a voiceless voice and the weight of cosmic truth delivered in an Iowa cornfield under an October sky. I remember being told the date and the hour and the certainty. I remember having my guilt lifted and my hope restored and my purpose clarified. And I remember the last thing Raziel said, the words that echo in my mind even now, especially now in the quiet hours when doubt tries to creep back in. Love is coming for you. Not judgment alone, not wrath alone, but love fierce and holy and unstoppable. The kind of love that creates galaxies and knows every hair on your head. The kind of love that became flesh and died and rose and is coming back to finish what it started. The kind of love that sends messengers across the cosmos to broken farmers in empty fields just to say, I see you, I know you, and I'm coming home. 8 years. Maybe less now, depending on when you're hearing this. 8 years until the King returns to the Mount of Olives, and the sky splits open, and the dead rise, and the living are transformed, and creation itself is born again into what it was always meant to be. 8 years to prepare, to make peace, to choose love, to let go of the lies and the fear and the guilt that keep us small and separate and lost. 8 years until everything changes. I'll be watching the calendar, counting down, not with dread but with anticipation. Because I know what's coming. I know who's coming. And I know that when he arrives, when those nail-scarred hands reach down from the sky and the voice that spoke the universe into existence speaks again, I'll finally understand why Sarah had to die, why I had to suffer, why the brokenness was allowed to persist for so long. Not because I'll get an explanation, though, maybe I will, but because I'll see his face. And in that face, every question will dissolve, every wound will heal. Every lonely night and bitter tear and desperate prayer will make sense in the light of what was always being prepared, what was always being worked toward, what was always the inevitable conclusion of a story that began with, "Let there be light," and ends with the light himself returning to dwell the use, forever. That's what I was told. That's what I believe. That's what I'm telling you now. The King is coming. September 25th, 2033. Mark your calendars. Prepare your hearts. And when I look up at the stars now, on clear October nights like the one when everything changed, I still hear his voice, Raziel's voice, the voice of the messenger who came from beyond the stars to tell me the greatest secret in the universe. Not how to avoid judgment, but when to expect redemption. Not how to escape earth, but when heaven comes to earth. Not the date of the end, but the date of the beginning. And every time I touch the mark on my forehead, the silver-white proof that I'm not crazy, that this really happened, I feel that same warmth I felt when Raziel touched me, the warmth of divine presence, the warmth of being seen, the warmth of being loved. And I know with a certainty that goes bone deep that I was chosen for this. Not because I'm special or holy or righteous, God knows I'm none of those things, but because I was broken enough to hear, empty enough to be filled, lost enough to need finding. And maybe that's you too. Maybe that's why you're still watching this, still listening, still feeling that pull in your chest that says there's more to this story than just one crazy farmer's delusion. Maybe you needed to hear that you're not alone, that the questions you've been afraid to ask out loud have answers, that the suffering you've endured has a purpose and an end date, that the king who seemed absent has actually been preparing his return, counting down to the moment when he'll split the sky and make all things new. If that's you, if you feel that resonance, that recognition, then I'm speaking directly to you now. Don't wait. Don't waste these 8 years in distraction or denial or the same cycles that have kept you bound. Seek Him. Seek truth. Seek love. Do the work of healing and forgiveness and transformation so that when that trumpet sounds and the sky opens, you'll be ready. Not scrambling, not terrified, but ready. Expectant. Like a bride who's been preparing for her wedding day and finally sees the groom coming down the road. Because that's what this is, in the end. A wedding, a reunion. The bridegroom returning for his bride, the church, the people who have loved him and waited for him and kept the faith through the long night of his absence. And the night is almost over. I've been asked, since I started telling this story, what people should do with the time that's left. How to prepare. What it looks like to be ready. I don't have a formula. I'm not a theologian or a prophet or anyone special, but I can tell you what I've learned in the years since that October night. What Raziel's message has taught me about how to live in the in-between. First, love people. Really love them. Not in some abstract spiritual way, but in the practical, showing up when it's hard way. Call your daughter, forgive your father, make peace with your enemies. Because on that day in 2033, all our petty divisions and grudges and pride-fueled separations are going to look so small, so stupid, so tragically wasteful. Don't wait until then to realize it. Do it now. Love now. Forgive now. Because we don't get this time back. Second, live like you believe it. Not just the return of Christ, but all of it. That you're loved, that you have purpose, that this life matters even though it's temporary, that your choices ripple out into eternity in ways you can't begin to measure. Stop sleepwalking through your days. Stop numbing yourself with distractions and addictions and the 1,000 small deaths we choose instead of real life. Wake up, be present, do the work you were put here to do, whatever that is. Paint, write, build, heal, teach, create, love. Make beauty in the midst of brokenness, because that's what God does, and we're made in His image. Third, tell the truth. Your truth. Not someone else's theology or your church's doctrine or what you think you are supposed to say. Tell what you've actually seen and experienced and learned. Tell your story, because it's yours and nobody else can tell it. And somewhere out there, someone needs to hear it. Someone whose life will be changed by your honesty, by your willingness to be vulnerable and real instead of safe and acceptable. That's what I'm doing right now. Telling my truth, knowing full well that some of you think I'm delusional, that I had a breakdown or a hallucination, or that I'm making this up for attention. And that's okay. You're allowed to think that. But I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. And I know that when September 25th, 2033 arrives and nothing happens, I'll look like a fool. But I also know that I won't be wrong. Because the mark on my forehead is still there. 6 years later, it hasn't faded. It doesn't hurt or itch or cause any problems. It's just there, a constant reminder that I encountered something beyond this world. Something real. Because the perfect recall Raziel promised me is still functioning. I can replay every second of that encounter with absolute clarity. Every word, every inflection, every detail. And I've tested it, written it down multiple times over the years, and every version is identical. Word for word. That's not how human memory works. We forget. We distort. We fill in gaps with imagination. But this memory doesn't degrade. It's pristine, preserved, like it was burned into my consciousness with divine precision. And because the guilt is still gone, that knot of self-hatred and survivor's remorse that defined me for years, it's still absent. I've had hard days since then. Days when I miss Sarah so much I can barely breathe. But the guilt? The sense that I failed her, that I should have done more, it's simply not there anymore. That's not therapy or time or personal growth. That's something that was surgically removed from my soul by a being who knew exactly where it lived and how to extract it. So no, I'm not wrong. I'm not confused. I'm not crazy. I met an angel in my cornfield, a messenger from God. And that messenger told me when Jesus is coming back. And now you know too. What you do with that information is up to you. I can't make you believe it. I can't prove it beyond sharing my testimony and showing you the mark and telling you that in 8 years less now we'll all find out whether I'm a prophet or a madman. But I'll tell you this, I'd rather believe and be wrong than disbelieve and be right. I'd rather live the next 8 years with hope and purpose and anticipation than spend them in the same numbness and despair that defined me before. Even if September 25th, 2033 comes and goes like any other day, the way I've lived since meeting Raziel has been better, fuller, more aligned with what I was created to be. So maybe that's the real gift. Not the date itself, but what the date has done to me, how it's reorganized my priorities, how it's given me courage to speak truth even when it costs me, how it's reconnected me with my daughter and my faith and my sense of purpose. Maybe that's what Raziel really gave me that night. Not information, but transformation. But I believe it's both. I believe the date is real. I believe the King is coming. And I believe that when he comes, everything will be exactly as Raziel described: the trumpet, the clouds, the resurrection, the renewal, the vindication of every promise God has ever made. I've started a countdown calendar in my office, a simple spreadsheet that I update every morning, days remaining until September 25th, 2033. As of today, it's 2092 days, less than 3,000. That sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's 8 years. 8 harvest seasons, 8 winters, 8 cycles of planting and growing and reaping and rest. My grandfather used to say, you can measure a man's life by his harvests, by how many times he puts seed in the ground and trusts that it will grow. By those standards, I might have 8 harvests left, maybe 9 if I'm lucky. And then comes the final harvest, the one where the reapers are angels and the wheat is separated from the chaff. And everything that can be shaken is shaken until only what's real remains. I think about that when I'm out on the tractor in the spring, turning over the soil, preparing it for seed. I think about how farming is one long exercise in faith. You put tiny kernels in the dirt, and you have to believe that something alive and powerful inside those kernels will respond to water and sun and time. You believe that death leads to life, that what goes into the ground broken will come up whole and multiplied. And I think about how that's exactly what Jesus taught, how he used farming metaphors constantly. Seeds and soil and harvest, death and burial and resurrection. The kingdom of God is like a man who scatters seed on the ground. First the blade, then the head, than the full grain in the head. He was teaching us to think in cycles, in seasons, in the patience of growth and the certainty of harvest. He was preparing us to understand that even when it looks like death has won, like everything is buried and lost, life is at work beneath the surface, getting ready, growing strong, preparing for the moment when it will break through the darkness into light. That's what these 8 years are, the time of underground growth, the season of preparation before the breakthrough, the gestation before the birth. And we get to choose how we spend them, in fear or faith, in darkness or light, in the old patterns that lead nowhere, or in the transformation that prepares us for what's coming. I've made my choice. I'm choosing faith, choosing preparation, choosing to believe that the messenger who came to my field was real and true, and that the date I was given is accurate. Choosing to live like someone who knows the king is coming home soon. And I'm inviting you to make that choice too, not because I have authority or special revelation beyond what I've already told you, but because I've seen what happens when you do, how it changes you, how it clarifies everything, how it makes you braver and kinder and more alive. You don't have to believe the date. Maybe that's too specific, too concrete, too vulnerable for you. I get it. But maybe you can believe the heart of the message, that you're loved, that Christ is returning, that this world's brokenness is not permanent, that restoration is coming, that every tear will be wiped away, and every wrong will be made right, and everything that's been lost will be found again. Can you believe that much? Can you let yourself hope for that? Because hope is what Raziel gave me that night. Not certainty alone, but hope wrapped in certainty. The hope that my suffering had meaning, that Sarah's death wasn't random or purposeless, that the long years of grief and loneliness were leading somewhere, that I would see her again, that we would have forever. That hope has kept me alive. Some days, it's been the only thing keeping me alive. And if my story, if this crazy, impossible testimony about an alien angel in an Iowa cornfield, if it gives you even a fraction of that hope, then it was worth telling. Worth the mockery and the skepticism and the risk of looking like a fool. Because you matter. Your life matters. Your pain matters. Your questions matter. And you deserve to know that they're not ignored or dismissed or forgotten. That every single moment of your existence is known and seen and valued by the one who made you. That's what Raziel told me. That's what I'm telling you. You are loved. Say it out loud. Right now, wherever you are. I am loved. Say it even if you don't believe it. Say it even if every experience in your life has taught you otherwise. Say it because it's true whether you feel it or not. Because the God who counts the hairs on your head and collects your tears in bottles and knows your name before you were born, that God loves you with a love that won't quit, won't fail, won't give up, no matter how far you run or how hard you fight or how convinced you are that you're unlovable. I know this because Raziel told me, and because in the years since that night I've felt it, I've experienced it. I've watched it work in my life in ways I can't explain but can't deny. The relationship I've rebuilt with Emma. The peace I've found in my grief. The courage I've discovered to speak truth even when it costs me. The joy, actual joy, not fake Christian smile joy, but real deep belly joy that I've felt in simple moments. Sunrise over the fields. Coffee on the porch, a conversation with a neighbor, a hymn on Sunday morning. These things weren't possible before. Before Raziel, I was dead inside, just going through motions, waiting to die so I could stop hurting. But now, I'm alive, fully alive. For the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever, I'm actually living instead of just existing, and that's available to you too. You don't need an alien encounter to experience it. You just need to open yourself to the possibility that you're loved, that there's more to reality than what you can see or measure or prove, that the spiritual realm is as real as the physical, and that sometimes they intersect in ways that shatter our categories and remake us from the inside out. That's what happened to me. I was shattered and remade. The old Thomas, the one defined by grief and guilt and quiet desperation, died in that field. And someone new was born, someone who knows things, someone who's seen beyond the veil, someone who can look at the stars and feel connected to them instead of dwarfed by them. Because I know now that we're not alone in this vast universe, that God hasn't just set creation in motion and walked away, that messengers travel the cosmos, carrying news of love and redemption to every corner of creation. We're not forgotten. We're not abandoned. We're not insignificant specks on a random rock spinning through meaningless void. We're beloved children of the Creator, living in a reality that's far stranger and more beautiful than we've been taught. And we're approaching the climax of a story that's been unfolding since before time began. A story of fall and redemption, of exile and return, of death and resurrection. A story that's about to reach its conclusion when the King comes back to claim his throne and his people and his world. September 25th, 2033. I'll be there. Well, I'll be here, but I'll be watching. I'll probably go out to that western field where it all started, where the sphere landed and Raziel emerged and my life changed forever. I'll stand there at noon Jerusalem time. That'll be 5 a.m. here in Iowa, still dark, still quiet, and I'll look up at the sky, and I'll wait for it to split open. And if I'm right, if Raziel told me true, then that's exactly what will happen. The sky will tear like fabric. The trumpet will sound. The dead will rise. And Jesus Christ, the same one who walked the dusty roads of Galilee 2,000 years ago, who turned water into wine and calmed storms and raised the dead and died on a cross and rose from a tomb, that Jesus will appear in the clouds, visible to every eye on earth simultaneously, undeniable and unmistakable and absolutely real. And everything will change, or maybe nothing will happen. Maybe I'll stand in my field at 5 a.m. on September 25th, 2033, and the sky will stay closed and the dead will stay buried, and I'll have to face the fact that I was wrong, that what I experienced was somehow not what I thought it was, that the mark on my forehead is just a strange scar from a fall I don't remember, that the perfect recall is a psychological phenomenon I don't understand, that the removal of my guilt was just delayed, grief processing finally kicking in. Maybe. But I don't think so. I think I met an angel. I think I was given a message. And I think that message is true. And in less than 8 years, we'll all know for certain. That's the beauty of a prophecy with a specific date. It's falsifiable. If I'm wrong, we'll know I'm wrong. I won't be able to move the goalposts or reinterpret the prophecy or claim it was symbolic. Either Christ returns on September 25th, 2033, or he doesn't. Binary, clear, testable. So I'm putting my credibility on the line, my reputation, my legacy, everything. Because I believe what I was told, and because the message is too important to keep quiet even if it means I might look like a fool. Better to risk foolishness than to stay silent when people need hope. That's what I've learned. That's what these 6 years since the encounter have taught me. That love requires vulnerability. That truth requires courage. That hope requires risk. And that we're running out of time to waste on fear and pride and the small, safe lives we've been taught to settle for. 8 years. Less than 3,000 days. What will you do with them? Who will you love? Who will you forgive? What will you create? What truth will you speak? What risk will you take? What adventure will you embark on? What dream will you finally pursue? Don't wait. Don't put it off. Don't tell yourself you have plenty of time, because you don't. None of us do. Even if I'm completely wrong about the date, even if Christ doesn't return in 2033, we're all mortal. We're all on borrowed time. Every day is a gift, and we never know which one will be our last. So live. Really live. Love hard, forgive freely, speak truth, make beauty, do justice, walk humbly, and prepare your heart for the possibility, the likelihood that everything is about to change in ways we can't imagine, but should anticipate with joy rather than fear. Because the King is good, the King is just, the King is loving, and when he returns, he's not coming to destroy, but to restore, not to condemn, but to redeem, not to end the story, but to begin the next chapter, the eternal one, the one where death and suffering and tears are finally abolished, and we get to experience reality as it was always meant to be. Paradise. Shalom. The kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. That's what's coming. That's what I was told. That's what I believe. And until that day arrives, I'll be here, farming my land, telling my story, counting down the days, preparing my heart, loving the people in my life, seeking truth, making peace with my past, and watching the sky with anticipation instead of dread. Because I know something most people don't know. I know when the King is coming home. And when I look at the stars now, on clear October nights like the one when everything changed, I don't just see distant suns burning in the void. I see evidence of a creator who speaks in light and mathematics and beauty. I see the canvas on which the story of redemption has been written since before humans existed. I see the highways that angels travel, carrying messages between heaven and earth. And I still hear his voice, Raziel's voice. The voice that spoke without sound, that resonated in my bones and blood and soul. Love is coming for you. Not someday. Not in some vague future. Soon. September 25th, 2033. The 6th hour. Jerusalem time. The Mount of Olives. Mark it down. Tell everyone. Prepare. The King is coming home. And when he arrives, when those nail-scarred hands reach down from the opened sky and the voice that spoke galaxies into existence speaks our names, we'll finally understand. We'll finally see. We'll finally know that every moment of suffering and doubt and waiting was leading here. To this, to him, to restoration and resurrection and reality remade. That's the promise. That's the hope. That's the truth that an angel from beyond the stars traveled across the cosmos to tell one broken farmer in the middle of Iowa. And now you know it too. What you do with it is up to you. But me, I'm believing it. I'm living it. I'm staking everything on it. Because I've seen beyond the veil. I've touched the hem of mystery. I've been marked by the divine. And I know with a certainty that goes beyond faith into knowledge that the waiting is almost over. The King is coming, and when I look at the stars, I still hear his voice.